Rusty Shovel Wrecking Crew!
What do you got? A fresh shave there? Fresh shaved face?
I got a fresh shaved face every month or so. I
Oh,
get rid of most of the beard or all of the beard.
got
Little
baby
scruff
face
if I
beard?
really zoom in on you for
Oh
all
yeah,
our visual viewers.
you've
Uh,
got some coming in there.
but yeah, every month or two I freshen up the beard and just reset it. And we have I might actually freshen it up again before LA because I believe LA likes youth. And I definitely look 5 or 10 years younger without the beard with the white hairs in it. But I might I need a haircut too. But then we have a college towards the end of the month, so I will be getting a haircut to look only like their older, lamer brother instead of their old, lame dad instead.
All right.
Gotta represent younger. Like, what are you going out to LA for?
So one, obviously to visit Jay, but
Hmm.
I've been doing this. I'm a judge on a show called Snark Tank.
Oh, sure.
Well, the one you know is Shark Tank. That is the multi-million dollar one.
No, I've heard of
This
Snark
is
Tank. It's the tech one, right? Where like you
it,
make fun of like tech ideas.
yeah. So someone is in
Yeah.
my Instagram feed. Uh, yeah, it's a bunch of usually very early stage tech startups, meaning their dad wrote them a check for 10 grand, so they made a
Hmm.
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Uh, they are pitching their ideas, and then it's usually 5 to 8 of us. It's a mix of comedians and people in actual tech, which I still don't understand why they do this. I guess they have fun because they get to be mean, but we roast the ideas. They'll pitch for 3 to 5 minutes, and then we make fun of the ideas for 5 to 10 minutes, and there's 3 to 4 of them per show, and it's definitely the most fun I have in comedy these days. So anyway, usually there's like one show a month in New York, but then in this past June there was a New York Tech Week where we did like 6 straight days of shows, which I thought I would want to kill myself by the end, but I still enjoyed it. So they're also doing it for LA Tech Week, which is in 10 days. So I'm doing a bunch of the LA shows, and it'll basically cover my plane ticket. I'm like, it's an excuse to go to LA, CJ, do some other shows. I think I got a spot at the Improv and Comedy Store, so
Oh, wow.
it'll be a fun work trip with non-work elements as well.
What's the worst idea that you've heard pitched? The
Oh my
worst tech
God.
idea that you've had to field?
Well, so you could really make this like a bad idea bingo card.
Okay.
And the thing that all of them hit is AI these days. And as soon
Okay.
as I hear AI, my eyes roll. And especially most of these AI ideas are not even like we have built our own data set. It's all like, I think APIs is the word where they're just accessing ChatGPT or one of the major ones and maybe with slight modifications. So it's like
Yeah.
if this was actually successful, we don't need you. You're not creating anything other than like a shitty little interface.
Got it. So
Sometimes
just like,
there's interesting things, but also someone like just pitch their stupid gym. Like most of it is tech, and then occasionally it's like random bullshit. And then I've started writing fake pitches that I'll have like an actor, comedian actor give. And then we don't tell them which one's the fake one, and they can't always guess it. That's how the
that's fun. They're
the
so
people.
out there that it's like they're so ridiculous. The kind of the idea where you just like use the API to use ChatGPT reminds me of people who just like buy jewelry off of like Alibaba or Temu or something and then just like resell it for like $90. You know, or they like repackage it a little bit or like give.
And there is an arbitrage and a hustle to that can make some money, but I don't think it would scale into an actual long-term viable business.
What about an AI gym assistant? It's an API. The way that it works is you go to the gym and it, it does your workout with you and it tracks all of your numbers and how well you're doing. and then it makes recommendations for growth. Like you should be lifting this percent more this week because last week I noticed you did this and you're kind of leveling out, or like, your workouts have been great, but you're still not improving. Let's talk nutrition. So it kind of guides you through your workouts, makes recommendations along the way to optimize your gains.
Jay, would you like to pitch in 2 weeks? I can get you pitching.
I mean, that's a pretty good idea.
I would like it only if they also used AI voices so you can choose your personal trainer's voice. So
Of course, you'd have a selection of AI voices. That should go without saying, but I'll say
one week it's like someone encouraging that, then the next week Don Rickles is just like, "You call that lifting?" Just stuff like that. That could be, and maybe it should really detect your mood and motivation levels and choose the AI voice for you based on what it thinks you need to get the extra lift in.
so. I got a pretty strong yes and from Ben, which isn't easy to do. So I feel like I must be onto something here.
I mean, I know you typed in, pitch me a
I,
AI idea into your chat GPT or
I
whatever as we were talking.
I didn't do anything of the sort. That was my own human creativity. You also complained about gyms. You said somebody pitched their gym idea, so
Yeah. But
I
then
combined the two things that you said you hated most.
well, the worst part of it was the guy spent the first 3 minutes of his presentation talking about his dead dad, and
Oh,
then he just
jeez.
named the gym after him. So he's really hustling a shitty presentation to let everyone know about his gym that's in the area, which is smart, but
Hmm.
not as fun to roast. You got dead dad and dumb Jim.
Hmm.
But the
Yeah,
show's
that's tough.
generally fun. Best worst idea or worst best idea, uh, aka the only one I actually remember. I've probably listened to 20, if not 30 of shows worth of these ideas. I'm actually giving on Tuesday, the Tuesday I'm in LA, like a lunchtime, how to your pitch sucks, how to make it better. I'm like doing a instructional thing to help improve their pitches because a lot of times even the pitches are bad. But the best worst idea was a fuck tent, which is what I called it. She called it a love pod, where
Ha.
basically, and this one was actually, I believe, in production. But basically, when you're at Burning Man or one of those Coachella big festivals,
Yeah.
and you want to fuck someone, but there's no privacy, so they set up little tents that are all the furniture is polyurethane or something that's very speed wash. So you either pay for 25 or 50 minutes at a time, and then they hose it down for 5, and then it's ready for the next people. So that was the most memorable. I'm like, so you made a fuck tent, huh? And it was quite memorable, but I'm not sure that's an actual good business idea.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like she was really horny at a festival once and like wanted to have sex and then couldn't find like an opportunity to do so. It's like
But it
seems
does solve an actual problem because I
it
imagine
does.
everyone's tripping on E, but no one wants literal sand in their vaginas.
It's
This is a
true.
good solution.
I mean, the idea that you could have like something where it's easily hosed down, like can be transferred to things like other than sex, you know? I mean, that sounds like a solid idea in like a certain way. It's like, oh, here's like my instant, easily set up and then easily cleaned, and then you could use it for just like changing room somewhere or something. But like, how do people get on this thing? Do they just kind of apply like online, just get like a bunch of random shit, or like people actually coming here like with the thought that their idea is good and like they're actually going to make a break this way?
The organizer recruits at like tech networking events and stuff.
Okay,
So that they get in touch with her, or we put him in touch with her. That's why I told Jay he can pitch his fake gym idea. Why not? The reason they do it, to one, they say when they actually pitch, no one gives them honest feedback.
sure,
Whereas here, because it's a show, if we think it's horrible, we just tell them in funny ways. And I guess also it helps them practice pitching, so the pressure's on, even if it doesn't matter, because there's people staring at you. So if you suck, you'll suck less over time.
sure.
But then a few of them have gotten some funding from some of the tech people on the shows.
Oh, okay.
So in theory, or people in the audience see it. So in theory, while you are being publicly flogged and shamed, There's a 1 to 10% chance that you get money out of it, so people would sign up for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jay seems very deep in thought. I think he's refining his gym pitch.
I was thinking of other things that rhyme with Shark Tank and what they might be, like Bark Tank, what that might be, or Clark Tank. I was just kind of daydreaming various tank shows.
Bark Tank, where it's just how to train dogs not to bark in
I was
different
actually
ways.
thinking
Or just like
you're pitching to three dog entrepreneurs, and it just keeps cutting to the dogs, and they're just dogs. They're just
sure.
being dogs.
That's
And
not
then
a
they
bad
cut
idea. You
back
could
to the
like
guy, and he's like vehemently pitching his idea, and then it just cuts back to the dogs smelling each other's butts or whatever they're doing.
kind of reminds me of like if you can bring, like dog toys or something, be like, hey, like is this something that pets are like interested in? Like Bark Tank. I remember like Golf Channel, like after Shark Tank kind of became a thing, or maybe even before I don't know the actual sequence. But Golf Channel had this thing where it was like golf inventions. And then it's like, and they'd have like three golf people that they just had on their like regular broadcasts, like pitch it, because golf is notorious for just snake oil, weird ass bullshit that people are like trying to sell on like late night television or like online or on Instagram or stuff. There's all this like weird ass golf stuff. And I just remember watching one episode because some guy created this like rubber band system that you put on to try to like get a perfect swing, but like it completely didn't work. And then he would get like tangled in the bands, and then they like were trying to help him, and then they got tangled in the bands, and it became this whole like Charlie Chaplin bit of like this guy getting stuck and him be like, this actually really does work. And then like other people getting stuck with them. And he kept insisting, like, this was a good idea. Like, you just aren't seeing it in the right light. I was just thinking, oh my God. And I felt like really sorry for this guy. I was like, this was really his big break. Like, he spent all this time and all this energy creating this like weird rubber band suit. And then he gets on TV, like, ready for his big break. And he's just like a blooper reel, you know? And I felt really bad for the guy. Like you put all this time and energy into this thing, and it's just like, all right, there's your chance. You blew it. All right, time to accept that you sacrificed years of your life for nothing.
I believe that would be called he Tim Waltzed it, huh?
There you go.
But but had the guy done Snark Tank first, he would have got entangled on stage. We would have mocked him mercilessly,
There you
but
go.
then he would be ready for his big TV break. Also funny that I believe most of the Golf Channel is pre-recorded. This was the one time they went live.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. This was years ago. I was a kid at the time, but I remember watching that. Um,
It reminds me of the Mad TV's Dentist in a Box sketch, which to me is one of the best sketches of all time, where it's like a fake infomercial, and this
mhm.
is for Dentist in a Box. So it's like do your own dentistry, and then as he's demonstrating it, the guy's just bleeding in his own mouth the whole time. It's hilarious. I'm sure it'll now come up on Jay's Instagram feed since we mentioned it.
I had a good one recently, as far as like robots listening in. Somebody remarked to me on the over the telephone that Christopher Reeves and Robin Williams were Juilliard roommates, which I had never known. And I got a suggested thread. I'm not even on threads, but when you're on Instagram, it'll suggest threads. And it was a picture of roommates from Juilliard School, Christopher Reeve and Robin Williams. Like
Wow.
that's so specific. It listed
Yeah.
the school, the name, like it was just exactly what he said on the phone, almost word for word.
It would be that would
Yeah.
be a fun sitcom because there's such different actors
Yeah, I mean that's wild.
Odd Couple remake roommates, but you get young people
Yeah.
to play them now, obviously. But that would be a fun.
Yeah. I had no idea that Robin Williams went to Juilliard. I thought that's interesting. For some
He
reason, I always
graduated?
thought he was just he came in through comedy. Like I didn't know he was like a trained actor in that way.
I mean, I guess that explains why he was good in Good Will Hunting in a unfunny role.
Yeah, that's right.
Although, from experience, us comedians get a lot of reps practicing being unfunny.
He's got quite a few dramatic roles,
He has a
Robin.
few, yeah. He did that movie about being like in Alaska. I forgot the name of it.
He
He's a
also
few
did
things.
the I think it's American Dad where he kills himself or the son kills himself and that gives his writing career. Uh it was quite a good movie, but then Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway was like a direct ripoff of it, and everyone pretended it was an amazing musical. And I'm like, I just saw Robin Williams do this.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah. Yeah, he was in like Dead Poet Society too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he wasn't that funny in that.
Yeah.
It was
Is
good,
there
but not funny.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of like plot lines and stuff are just like recycled from like previous movies or previous things. I didn't really even understand. I like knew Dear Evan Hansen. Like a lot of these musicals, I'm not like a big musical guy, but like I know them as like cultural phenomena, but I don't know them like as actual things. So like Dear Evan Hansen, like I don't even know what it's about. Like and then I hear it's because and it takes place about like a high school kid or something. Like there's all of these things that or like Hamilton. Like I get the gist about it being about the founding fathers in like this musical kind of rap way, but like I don't know anything else that's like deeper about it.
So, Chris, you know that I love to hate things that are popular, kind of
Hmm.
like you, where we both have that. Fuck you, just because you're overly popular, I'm not gonna like this. And
Sure.
that's how I came into the Hamilton soundtrack.
Got it.
And then I was like, holy shit, this is great.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you haven't listened to the soundtrack yet. The musical, I'm not saying go see the musical, but highly recommend Spotify or whatever. Listen to the soundtrack on a long drive.
Hmm.
It's fantastic.
Okay.
I hate to hate everything. I love to hate popular things. Hamilton's soundtrack is very good.
Okay.
Interesting that you recommend the soundtrack, but not necessarily the musical. That's a pretty funny distinction.
So I saw Michelle and I saw the musical after Lynn left, so it was like the next cast.
Hmm.
And because I had listened to the soundtrack 5 or 25 times, it wasn't how I pictured it at all.
Mm.
Where I, because the musical is so not like regular musicals, I thought the staging would be not like regular Broadway musical staging, but it was. So that was one disappointment. It's still quite good, but the soundtrack's better because you also hear the words better you follow the story even better. And then two, the guy who replaced Lynn, perfectly Broadway trained, hits every note, fantastic. But I would argue that Lynn's grit and less than polish, because the character is like this immigrant hustling, hungry for success character, and Lynn's imperfections in the voice make it a better acting character than the Broadway trained perfect version of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There you have it.
I,
And
I
that's
did see this week,
recommendation.
Jay. I don't recommend you fly in for it, but Chris, it was called Celino and Barnes.
Oh, I
It's
know.
a
I've heard about this. Yeah.
fucking hilarious 75-minute play, no intermissions, wall to wall laughs. Jay, do you remember Celino and Barnes? They were the original injury attorneys with the 1-800-888-8888. They just advertised everywhere.
Hmm.
Great phone number.
And they had like a big breakup. They were making
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars. So this is like a over the top caricature play about them, but it's fucking great and hilarious and highly recommend. And I think it's a cheap ticket. And I think Michelle gets them on like papering sites for $5, but even full price at 20 or 40 is worth it.
Hmm.
Seems we've naturally transitioned into some recommendations. And
Hmm.
last night I started watching something randomly and I was laughing at it. And I was like, you know what? This is my recommendation for tomorrow. It's called Gary and His Demons. And I think you'd both like it. Have either of you heard of it? I never heard of it.
No.
Never heard of it. Love the title though.
I think you'll like it. And you know what, Ben? Great news. You only have to invest watching one episode. It's not the kind of show where you need to watch multiple episodes to get the idea. And the episodes are like 10, 12 minutes long.
Oh,
So
great. What's it
very
on?
short. So it's streaming on Amazon at the moment. Very short comedic bits. This guy is a demon hunter named Gary, and Gary's the chosen one.
Hmm.
And you know, you're supposed to serve like a 15-year sentence as the chosen one, but they haven't seemed to figure out his replacement. So he's just kind of perpetually, since he's been 15 years old, been stuck in this job that he hates, which is just like absolutely horrible because he's dealing with demons all the time. Gary and his demons, very funny, very silly, light.
I have added it to my Amazon watch list.
Yeah. I'll be curious to know what you think. Maybe next week you can follow up.
Any middle-aged man tip of the weeks from you, Chris? Jay and I gave some recs.
Yeah, get a so middle-aged man tip of the week. If you have like a house or an apartment and you frequently have your toilet or your sinks backing up, it's like a common problem. Get yourself down to Harbor Freight and buy one of their $70 cordless drain augers. I don't know about you guys and your auging experience, but back in the day, they'd have this fucking drum that you'd have to wind out yourself, and it would get rusty. It didn't like work very well. Sometimes it just gets stuck. Like it sucked. And now they have this one where it's like you just press a trigger and it's like a little knob that you hold on to push it forward and it goes down the drain like clockwork, just pushes it out, you just pull it back in, clears your drains like nobody's business, and it's just $70. So that's my middle-aged man tip of the week. Get yourself a cordless drain auger from Harbor Freight.
Commercial clears your drains like nobody's business.
Like
So
nobody's
on
business.
down and get your auger.
Or
Yeah.
just call us at 1-800-888-8888.
I was just really impressed because I had this slow ass drain and I tried all this different shit to fix it. And like, I just bought this one stupid thing. And I'm like, I'm such an asshole. I spent like 3 days and like countless hours doing this dumb shit. And then there's one tool fixed it in like 35 seconds.
That is the thing I've learned as I approach middle age. If you have a problem that can be solved for 50 to $100, you don't have a problem other
Yeah.
than being cheap.
Yeah.
Those are some good middle-aged man tips of the week this week. You're welcome, listeners. We got you.
Old school game of the week. A couple weeks ago, I downloaded Base Wars after we talked about it. I played with my kid. Sneeze.
Bless you. Wow, that was a big boy.
I enjoyed it. She had no idea what's going on. She doesn't really understand baseball, but she liked swinging and hitting. And she thought I kept hitting home runs on her, and she thought she was scoring the points. So we had a good 10 minutes till she realized she was losing 20-0. And then we there was one point where it got to like the fighting. She's like, I don't like this. Why are we fighting? But I actually like the game. I mean to play it on my own or when Jay or Chris visit.
All right.
That's a
Old
good
school
one.
week covered.
Covered. Dating issue of the week.
Oh, silence takes over
Yeah.
the room.
Dating issue of the week.
A hush comes over the crowd.
Yeah, it's hard because I don't feel like I feel like I'm out of touch with like what it means to like go dating, and you have this like it's like a different like emotional experience when you're in like a relationship for very long because you have like a certain security. And like my memories of dating, it's like it's being in a place of like perpetual insecurity. So sometimes like I'll have like dreams or something where I'll be kind of like back in the dating world and it'll
Mm.
feel like really anxious, be like, because you're trying to figure out somebody else, you're trying to present yourself, but like it's a performance, like it's hard to be your true self unless you're around somebody for a long time. At least it is for me. So it's like you're kind of like calibrating like how you think they would want you to act in a way that's also commensurate with what you can actually present like effectively. But whereas like as you get older, like your kind of true self comes out, and then that's not always a good thing, you know? Like I feel like lately I've just been like unhinged, and I'm like, man, I need to really just like put a mask back on a little better. Like I need to do like a better job of like hiding just how insane I've been. Like because it's like I don't know if it might be like off-putting. You know, I don't think somebody wants to be around someone who's like in the middle of the day like screaming at their computer because like they're just sick of having to do like the most basic ass work request. You know what I mean? So it's like, man, I got to get my shit together. So I like went to a psychiatrist the other week and then so they upped my Lexapro dosage, which so that was one thing. And then the other thing they did is they gave me this thing called propanolol, which like helps to suppress. It's like a mostly a blood pressure medication, but it helps to suppress like adrenaline. So if you start to feeling like really like agitated and just like, oh man, I'm like gonna lose it, it like helps you and you feel that coming on. You like take like 20 mil and then it kind of helps to like calm you down and like kind of it allows you to kind of regather your thoughts and like ground yourself again.
Sounds
So
like
I
a
think
beta blocker.
yeah, it's a beta blocker. It's exactly what it is. And it's been like it's been helpful because I feel just like in my own relationship, I'm like, man, I've just been way too myself lately. Like I gotta get, I've got to like get this under wraps.
My method was always to be over the top at the beginning
Yeah,
to process of eliminate most people right away by saying something awful and fucked up. And if that doesn't drive them away, then I can be, be.
yeah,
But most people do what you say, where you're presenting the better version of yourself.
hmm
Where I would flip it and present a slightly more dickish, worse version of myself. And if that doesn't scare you away, then I'll be nicer over time.
That's not a bad idea. Like you got to get your demons out early, you know, because if especially if you want it to last a long time, like you don't want to like invest like a year in a relationship and then like you start taking the mask off and it's like, oh wow, you guys are not compatible. You want to figure this out early.
I've seen you do that, Ben. I've seen you put on like a little extra bit of the asshole mask. Do you guys know brain rot language? Like the way that kids talk these days, like all their different.
I've heard brain rot, but I don't really know what it means.
I've not heard brain rot. Do you mean Riz? That's the last of what
Here's
the
as an
kids say.
example. Well, yeah, or like the Rizzler would be a better like even.
Haven't heard the Rizzler, but that's a fun term.
Yeah, like whatever, like it's brain rot language. Like they have all these little lingos and stuff. Anyway, they say Sigma a lot, and Sigma is like alpha, basically. It's their alpha. And I was just thinking they could call beta blockers instead. They could rebrand them as Sigma enhancers and probably sell a lot.
Sigma answers.
That
That's
generation
good.
would eat those up.
Wait, isn't Sigma from like Six Sigma, meaning you're in the 0.01% there for alpha? I had to
Yeah, but it
explain
all
out
comes
loud to
from
myself.
no, you don't want to think out loud too much about this stuff. It all comes from memes and just
Yeah.
something that takes off the internet. Like they're not all solvable just by thinking about them.
Aren't like Sigma males like in Gen Z or Gen Alpha language also more like loners a little bit? They're like not as invested in like traditional power structures. Like that's like a Sigma male or my
They all have pretty loose definitions. Like you
okay,
guys are like overthinking it and
got it.
overthinking it. Like sometimes the kids don't even know what the words mean. So there'll be like a video with like their parent, and it's like they're making fun of their parent for not knowing what it all means. And then the parent will be like, well, what does it mean? Define it. And they can't. Like
Yeah.
it's just like skibbity is just a sound. It doesn't mean anything.
But
So
why would they post that if they don't, right? There aren't they controlling the posts? So like, why would you
no,
post
this is the
where you?
parent. Like, I'm gonna make a video and I'm gonna ask my kid
Oh,
what
okay.
the top five words are these days, and like the kid's all embarrassed, like, Mom, you're embarrassing me. Oh my God. Like that kind of thing. Parents don't know anything.
That's
I
true.
will say I at least have one line that's working based off of, as you call it, brain rot language of I don't have real Riz, but I do got a touch of a tiz.
Yeah, it's decent. I
hmm
see it.
And Chris, with the when I say dating issue of the week, relationship issue of the week
Yeah.
is also synonymous for our middle-aged purposes.
Yeah.
Ben's the Tizzler.
Tizzler.
I like that one, the Tizzler. Tizzle me this.
I was just thinking like the Riddler, the Tizzler. That's fun. You could be like a Halloween costume, it was like the Tizzler. You could have like all sorts of like weird it would just be like incoherent. You could have like weird question marks like the Riddler, but then you could also have some sort of like Chad blonde hair or something, like a Rizzler, it just like creates this bizarre concoction.
Conspiracy theory in a week, aka what our whole podcast should be.
It is a good concept for a podcast. I think there's something there. I think you were texting something. I'm gonna look on our thread, Ben. You were texting something to us. You said conspiracy for next week. Mayor Adams got indicted
Hmm.
by Democrats for speaking out against migrants.
Yes, the conspiracy that's going around my Twitter algorithm
Oh boy.
is in addition to his corruption, which is probably true of all politicians, regardless of left or right. I just assume everyone's getting kickbacks. His seem more sloppier based on the indictment summaries. But what Twitter algorithm was saying was the only reason or the reason that got them to indict him versus just, wait till he's out of office or whatever is because Mayor Adams was complaining about all the migrants coming into New York City and sucking all the services, whereas right-wing Twitter is perpetuating the illegal migrants coming in and they're registering them as legal voters to then tip the elections in swing states.
Oh my God.
So because Mayor Adams was, as a Democrat, pushing back against the migrants and trying to limit them, they indicted him to get him out of office so that they can sign up more migrants.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean, we don't typically give people like rights for free. I doubt that they're just like, hey, you guys are all citizens now, so you can vote. We're gonna just fake all your paperwork, but it's not fake, it's real, and you can vote now. Like that's like 40 steps for my brain to jump of suspicion that I wouldn't be willing to go because I'm not scared of people that are from other countries.
yeah. Most of those folks don't even have work papers yet, much less like the right to vote,
Well, luckily, no,
on
most of the
Randall's
states
Island.
don't check that you have an ID before they let you vote. So,
Is that real? Like I feel like there are
That's not
processes
true. There's
that
this thing
do
called
check.
e-verify that you're required to use for you verify the citizenship or status of everyone before they're allowed to be employed. And a lot of states like have that as like a legal requirement prior to employment.
no, I said for voting. I agree it is hard to get a job on the books without proper
Yeah.
documentation. But for a lot of states, I don't think they check. They have made it
Well, they
illegal to
shouldn't.
ask for IDs to vote
They
before
should,
letting you vote.
because what used to happen is that like folks would come to the voter ID laws would be used, and what they would do is they'd make the IDs extremely expensive, like in the South, and so they'd be
Right.
like out of touch of like poor black folks mainly, and so by
Now that
requiring
I
I
believe.
and then by requiring IDs at the voting booths, they basically disenfranchised half the black population because they couldn't furnish the appropriate documentation and money to buy the IDs required to vote. Like
Well,
it
the
was just a tool of
solution
disenfranchisement.
to me, the solution there, Chris,
Yeah.
is instead of no IDs, if you are Medicaid or food stamp or whatever eligible, you can get a driver's license for free instead of the 60 or $100 whatever bullshit they charge us now.
Yeah.
That would be the way to solve that while it doesn't seem that difficult of a thing. But like, yeah, let's not disenfranchise people, but that there's other solutions versus no IDs.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you shouldn't have so many impediments to voting, especially when like voter fraud is like any claims to voter fraud are usually debunked or they just seem to be extremely limited, or it's like an extremely senile old person who voted for three different Republicans in three different counties. Like that's usually what voter fraud turns out to be.
Yes, and I think we said this on a previous podcast. The issue to me isn't even the single voter fraud situations, so
Yeah.
much as nobody audits the computer code for either side. This isn't a Republican or Democrat thing to me. It's right. There is machines that you need because you can't add up 100 million or 200 million votes or whatever it is by hand, like literally to totals. But
Yeah.
who's checking all those totals and all that programming? That's where the issue to me is more so than any of this Mayor Adams conspiracy migranty stuff. Because ironically, I could see the migrants turning and voting not for Democrats at some point, which would be kind of funny.
Yeah, the thing with Adams too, it's like, did you read like the indictment and the stuff? Like, what's so kind of obvious about what Adams was doing was he tried to make it look like he wasn't corrupt by paying like nominal fees for things. So he'd pay like $300 for first class airfare to Paris, and he'd always fly through Istanbul because it was the Turks who were like basically bribing him because they were bribing Adams to fast track fire department approval of like a Turkish consulate. And so what he would do is he'd get like these $20,000 like first class air tickets and he'd pay like $300 for them. And then there's all these text messages that he sent to like his partner, like his business partner, his romantic partner, being like, "Oh, we're gonna fly to Istanbul or we're gonna fly to Paris and have this like luxury vacation. And of course we have to fly through Istanbul, LMFAO." Like there were all of these like the evidence was just so clear that there was like malfeasance going on with the Turks that it was like almost
You say
unavoidable.
malfeasance?
Yeah. And I
Can we
know
take a
that
quick obscure reference of the
yeah.
week? Pause. You wanted to find malfeasance for us?
Just like doing bad shit, you know? Just doing bad illegal stuff. And also prosecutors basically make their careers on like political corruption cases. Like if you want to be fast tracked to being like a big fucking deal as like going from, you know, Manhattan DA's office to like running for attorney general to the state to like working for the feds, nail a political corruption case, your career is just going to fucking skyrocket. So a lot of these corruption cases happen on like seemingly somewhat like flimsy grounds. It's because they're just such a big deal to the careers of the people who make them.
Which I would play back and then say the Trump prosecutions.
Yeah. I mean, that's it could be it's true. Like political corruption cases are like enormous for these folks. Like that's what the FBI goes after kind of specifically because they know it's just like such a big deal.
It's also if you're a politician taking bribes as you do, at least don't text message about it.
I
Like
know, really.
you'd think you watch one SVU and you know they always check your fucking texts and subpoena them and have like plausible deniability. Like this has been a politician 101.
Keep your
Yeah.
malfeasance anonymous, people. Duh.
Yeah, at least have it like 3 levels removed bagmen that like keep you at least above water till after your relatives can bury suitcases of money in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had his whole family on staff. It was just like I don't know. He really thought that like going to be the mayor of New York, he can just like continue to do like the weird ass bullshit he do back in Brooklyn. But no, like there's people that are wanting to
And the worst part of it for
replicate
me
him.
is like, fine, politicians corrupt, that's par for the course, right? Like we're more surprised when someone doesn't get payoffs. But what wasn't he like the police commissioner or high up in the cops for years?
Yeah, he was. He was high up in the cops for years.
So
Yeah,
that means like the cops are all fucking corrupt too. Like you don't just develop this behavior later. Like
exactly. Yeah, yeah, totally. He basically he's like running the city like the cops run their own kind of business, basically. Yeah.
yeah, it's like Tammany Hall back in the day.
Hmm. Yeah, it's rough. I mean, I don't know if I've talked about this earlier, but like they have all of these shutdowns on the bridges where they're like checking people for like random stuff and like people are getting their cars impounded for like out of date inspections, like the dumbest stuff. And so you see all these like abandoned cars like lined up on the bridges and they're just like the cops are just like writing tickets and impounding cars just like on a Saturday and like traffic's backed up for 15 miles. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like this is the amount of money we're spending on overtime for this is like far more than like any of the money we'll get in like fines as a result of this, you know?
Kiss, hug, beat up. Mayor Adams is on it.
Ha,
Uh, I don't think we've had two other people we've mentioned by name. So I'm gonna go random Gen Alpha kid who throws around the skull lingo or what'd you brain
Brain rot.
rot, and the parent that gets him on camera not knowing what it means.
Okay.
Okay. Adams is a tough one because I don't want to like beat him up, but I like don't like him, you know?
Why don't you want
So
to beat him up though? Are you afraid it'll be classified as a hate crime versus a taking it back for citizens of New York?
I do, yeah, very much so. That is exactly my fear, yes. That yeah. I think with like Adams, it's like he's like a terrible mayor, but he's not like a figure that I despise. He's just somebody that's like, the fuck did this clown get elected? You know, like get him out of here. So maybe if I can somehow hug him and then create like a scandal that like forces his resignation. You know what I mean? Like maybe I can entrap him in some way
You would give
with
him
the
a
hug.
hug and then me to him say he felt you up while you hugged.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. So it's something like that. Like I'd use the hug, but it would actually be an ulterior motive to like entrap him in a way to like
Like
get him out of
that.
office.
I like that Chris, in an attempt to be kinder to him, accidentally destroyed his life,
Yeah,
reputation, career, family.
It wasn't
He's
in
like,
an
I don't want to
attempt.
beat him up. I just want to like kind of get him out of office. So here's my plan. I'll
yeah.
destroy him from the inside out.
I would say it wasn't an attempt to be kinder to him. Chris just didn't want to get accused of a hate crime.
Yeah, I wanted to be the victim here, you know? Like
Well done. Well positioned. And then who are you beating up then?
Like just the Gen Z seems like easy kid to beat up. You know, they're kind of weak. They look at video games and like
Beat
their
up.
phone all the time. I'm a big guy. I can probably just like, you know, literally kick him in the butt and like send him into the garage door. Just like give him a nice little whack. And then the parent, it's like give them a kiss because like they're having to deal with having a kid running around like saying skibbity all the damn time. Like that seems like a behavior that you need a little relief from.
Well, mine's easy. You know, it sounds like this mayor's up to some malfeasance, so I'm going to beat him up for that.
Nice.
I'm not kissing any kids, so I'm going to go ahead and give the adult a nice kiss and make it their sexy mom. And you know, the kid, they're getting a fucking skibbity toilet hug.
I'm with Jay on this one. Although I do like
Oh,
Chris's creativity and entrapment. I think beating up the mayor would make me a NYC celebrity for a couple of days,
That's
and
true.
that'll help sell tickets.
That's true. Yeah, they will come to see you if you beat up the mayor. That's true. You'll be killing it on Staten
you'd
Island.
have a
Like,
few
oh my
sold
God.
out. Yeah, that you'd be able to ride that for a little bit.
Title this podcast. I have perpetual insecurity, the AI gym assistant, put the mask back on, or malfeasance.
I mean, perpetual insecurity sounds actually like deep.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
even
so,
remember.
so, do we want to entrap and mislead our listeners with something deep?
I don't even remember
Or-
talking about it. That could be a whole episode. Perpetual insecurity sounds like a good episode.
Yeah.
That's a good title.
all right,
I don't know that we covered it.
It's
Maybe
very
that's what we're talking
relatable.
about.
perpetual insecurity. It is that we could either end it early, or I could share my why do public school systems of New York are failures stories.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear this one. It was
Share
teased
story
last
with us.
week.
I think it's been teased for 2 months, but
Okay.
Let's get it out of you.
all right. So here's last year she was in kindergarten. We thought it was fine. We didn't know she was excited to go to school, doing her homework, seemed fine. Then we're talking towards the end of the year, the kindergarten teacher went on maternity leave for like the last 4 to 6 weeks. Again, okay, fine. But we went to a meeting or two of like just school parents, like a town hall thing. And like it turned ugly. It was like awesome in that it turned ugly right away. Where it was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting, it went 2 hours. They're all yelling at the
God.
principal. So like one example is either last year or the year before, some third or fourth grade teacher quit in the middle of the year, and they didn't notify any of the parents, and they just merged two classes. And the parents figured it out 3 weeks in because the kids are coming home crying. They don't have their teacher. There's too many kids in the class. Like no communication. So
Wow.
that's like our first like what's going on in this school? And then other parents are complaining, we used to do activities in the school all the time. You never brought them back after COVID reopened. Like we feel unwelcome now. So that's like the background of like that's weird, but our kid seems happy. So teacher goes on maternity leave, and then we're talking to some parents, and I figured she left lesson plans or something. They're doing nothing for weeks. Turns out they're doing nothing. But okay, fine. End of the year, everyone's a little checked out, whatever. Her first grade teacher, also on maternity leave, nobody tells us. And it's like, well, we can't start the next year with this substitute bullshit. It's there, and the substitutes are uncertified. They're swapping every day. So some of the parents, like me as well, but other parents like wrote emails like, "Hey, what is the plan?" And they're not communicating this. This is the main thing. A lot of these issues, if administration's like, "Hey, just so you know, first grade teacher is going to be out for a while. We have a plan. It's going to work out." Even just like something vague like that
Hmm.
would be like, all right. Whereas when everything is a surprise, now you get into conspiracies of why aren't they telling us anything? How incompetent is it? Incompetence, or because they know we'll be upset, or so
I think
like
it's generally incompetence, but I agree with you. Like communication is paramount. And if you don't communicate, people are going to make things in their own mind up about what you're not communicating.
Yeah, absolutely.
and it starts to feel like fuck you parents, you don't know anything. We know things. You fuck off. Is what it. So one of the other parents, she works for the Department of Education.
Hmm.
So she writes this very well thought out 8 or 10 paragraph email CC, to the principal, CCing principal's boss and boss's boss. So like, AKA, you should probably answer this well, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's just like, hey, we want to make sure there's a certified teacher for our students. The end of this year was substitutes galore. We want our kids to learn. Like that's the gist of it. But
Yeah.
Hmm.
long and like thought out, and like how you deal with bureaucracies by addressing
Yeah.
everything and documenting.
Yeah.
This principal's reply is, "We care about all our students. Thank you."
Oh my
That's the
gosh.
whole reply. So that's the starting point to start the year, because this was June that this happened.
Got it.
We have a certified teacher, but it's usually the technology teacher who knows if she knows how to teach reading or math. But technically, she's certified. The kids have a new building this year. Day one of the new building, the air conditioning is broken. It stays broken for weeks. I write an 8 paragraph email because the teacher's like, they don't listen to us. Maybe if you email them, they'll address it. I write a long email. She replies, "It is my understanding that the air conditioner works. Thanks for your concern. I'm picking up my kid every day. I have a heat headache," is how she starts the pickup. That
Oh my
then
God.
we get a letter that this brand new building, half the rooms tested positive for lead in the water. And they didn't have textbooks till week 3. And again, if you communicate, hey, due to supply chain, blah, 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 there's not going to be textbooks for the first 2 weeks. We're so sorry about this, but we're photocopying. It'll be fine. They're still learning, right? Okay, no problem. Nothing gets communicated. We slowly find out these things. And the school. So then one of the other moms was in the teacher's lounge because she's like PTA, and she went to open a cabinet in the brand new building. Cabinet fell off. And then apparently, and so our teacher told us, or at least our kid in front of the teacher's like, it's hot. And then, I just start going, we didn't leave Soviet Russia for this bullshit. And she's like, please don't yell, don't curse in front of the children. All that, that's how I respond. One of the other moms is like, let me go into the building and check it. So she goes in, whatever, and then she's trying to talk to the teachers, and they're afraid to answer her if it's hot or not, where they have to like nod but not say.
Wow.
So there's some sort of culture of fear. Oh, this principal's retiring this year. She's been checked out last. Literally, that first meeting we went to, one of the parents accused her of being checked out last year because they knew she knew she had announced she was retiring. And then I wasn't here for, oh, and they didn't have a schedule of they didn't have a schedule of what day is what special activity for the first month. And they're saying it's because of the new building. There was so much there that they didn't like do the basic scheduling. And apparently I wasn't here for this, but the teacher said the school is doing a disservice to the kids.
Wow. Wow.
Sounds
And
like,
so
yeah, that's bad.
and it's mostly the principal then that's like it seems like the teachers like kind of want to get stuff fixed, but they're just in a bind. And it's just like the principals who are like giving the big fuck you.
Yeah, it seems like the teachers care and want to try, but they're hamstrung by a terrible. So, like, I was actually my only positive was when the teacher got upset that I was yelling and angry. She's like, I care about these kids. You don't understand. It's not me. Like the way she defended the kids, I'm like, okay, I believe she cares and she's trying her best at least.
Yeah.
Whereas like any interaction with administration, oh, and when the air conditioning wasn't working, then the reason I said this is bullshit because then they said you can't have fans because electrical.
What, because they're electrical? There's like no
They
electricity.
didn't even that was the sentence.
Oh my God.
And then it's like I can't talk to you anymore. They don't want us talking to you during dismissal. So then I lost my mind, and then I got them to allow personal fans that she could have at least like a little hand fan battery operated.
Well,
But
that's good.
it's been
Of
like
you. This is crazy though. Like the fact that the responses you get are just the fuck you, like one sentence, we care about our kids stuff. Like there's no like meaningful interaction or communication.
and I think back
That's
in May
bad.
I told you guys about the did I tell you about the field trip thing where like I
Yes,
didn't take
yeah.
the bus and the response is, sir, this is a public school after I yelled. So that's like the attitude of what do you expect instead of like it just. Oh, and then our kid is apparently reading at a kindergarten level. Like all her testing, she's on kindergarten, not first grade level. Although
Mhm.
she's people that are not us when they interact with her is like, wow, she's like smart and well. Her
Mhm.
vocabulary's like high and all that, but the testing is not.
Hmm.
So we were gonna like get the school to test her to then get like extra services where one-on-one because there's 30 fucking kids in the class with a
Yeah.
substitute. Oh, and they have some of the kids have paras, which are like para teachers that keep the kid from stabbing and disrupting everyone else. And I told Michelle that this new para looks like he needs a para. So we were
So
gonna get her those services, but apparently, like, if you let the school do the testing, they might screw it up, or it'll come out however it comes out. So a relative of ours who has dealt with the school system is like, you should pay for your own testing because then you can control the outcome and learn, and then like force more services and stuff. So it's like
yeah.
it seems like a full-time job to figure out why they can't. It's like just teach her how to fucking read and do math. End of rant.
No, that's absurd. I can't believe that they like just merged the classrooms. They have like 60 kids in a class without telling anybody. And then like they did like the substitute's one thing, but like they're I thought the whole thing about like New York City schools these days was like the curriculum was like so locked down that like every kid was just kind of every teacher would just like teach to like a specific pre-written curriculum. So it was like you can just plug one teacher in and pull one out. Like that's what I've heard like teachers complaining about. Like they don't have their own like their own kind of judgment is suppressed in favor of like the templates. But from what you're saying, it's like no, there's no like template. It's just like willy-nilly, or they just don't do anything.
There might be they don't communicate any of this. I mean,
Yeah.
I went with the air. I was emailing New York Post. I was pitching the New York Post of like brand new building, busted air. Perhaps this is part of Mayor Adams' corruption. Just
Yeah,
to, like try to publicly shame them into doing something.
because the education chancellor is one of the Banks brothers who is just under significant federal
Well,
scrutiny.
he's resigning or
He's,
retiring at the end of the year. So no one's in charge at the top at this point. They named his like Lieutenant, the new one, which isn't gonna fix anything if it's the same bullshit. So,
Yeah.
and you know, all the rents are so high. It's like, where can you move to?
Yeah, that's true. Like I hear there's like certain like public schools that are like better than others. It's kind of like luck of the draw, but it's like no, you can't like move to like a rich neighborhood just to get their public school.
I mean, you got to move to a rich town, but then you're dealing
Yeah.
with, you know, when everyone's rich and spoiled, it has those their own problems. Now instead of dime bags, it's all Peruvian fine cocaine in high school. So that's not better.
Who can afford that these days?
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
In this economy?
No, it's yeah, that's horrible.
And again, the relative giving advice was in a good public school. And she's like, yeah, we had very similar issues. You telling us this is giving me flashbacks.
Oh my
And
God.
so like,
I think it's just that incompetence can be anywhere. I don't even think you need a mayor corruption scan. That'll help, but like I don't even think you need it. I just think incompetence is everywhere. And they moved into a new building, but that's not an excuse to suck in every single angle of possibility. But this principal really doesn't care. This principal is retiring, and
Yeah.
like no threats or no well worded emails really shake their perspective. So you're just dealing with that as this like what do you call that a bottleneck in like the ability for the school to be good, but also there's just like administrative issues like the person who's supposed to order the textbooks just like didn't order them. That's why they didn't have them for the first few weeks, because like they all showed up and they were like, you didn't order them. And they were like, well, Sally told me like to wait for budget. And they're like, whoa, what are you guys talking about? We got to order them. And that's why for the first 3 weeks of school it's just like incompetence stacking on itself. And like, yeah, the principal's like a sociopath, maybe. They're like, air conditioning, those kids don't need it. It's why I heard it's working or whatever.
what turned out allegedly is it is working, but it's some green building that's set. The whole building is set for 72 degrees, not individual classrooms. But if
Yeah.
you're on the east side of the building where the sun hits, it's 82 degrees instead of 72, but the thermostat is on the west side of the building. So it
I
like doesn't.
I worked in a major tech
Yeah.
company that should have had like the best workplace services possible because of the amount of budget that was flowing through. And same issue with a room in the building. Like the sunrise and the windows make a massive difference. And it took them an insane amount of calendar time to actually resolve the issue. So just a random public school trying to resolve the same issue, like in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, obviously it's going to be a total
Well, they were like,
disaster.
oh, it's not going to be hot soon. I'm like, how is that an answer? That's not an answer. Plus, if if the air isn't working and this is a central system now, that means you might have heating problems, which are worse.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
the
that's true.
you're right though. It's the sun that's causing the issue. The sun is heating the room up. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
But it's like, what kind of engineering? What engineer in 2022 doesn't know to factor in block long building? Hey, maybe we should have more than one fucking climate control for 100 rooms.
yeah, you'd need it, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, it's just, I remember a story like somebody told me once about the Department of Education, and this was for like a trucking contract with the Department of Education, and it was a contract to like drive the lunch tables from like one school to another or something, like something very basic, like moving the lunch tables from like the warehouse to the school or something. And the guy I knew was owned like a little trucking company in Brooklyn. And he was like, all right, so this is how it went. He's like, I was applying for this contract. And he's like, so the meeting took place in the back of this like procurement officer's limo, like the meeting for the Department of Education. It took place in like the back of a limo. It was like on the side of like Fifth Avenue. It took like 5 minutes, and he was basically like, "Look, you're applying. We got to have multiple people apply just to look like we're doing our jobs to get a price. But I'll level with you. You don't have the money to give me to get this contract. You're not going to get this contract. Like this contract's already totally wrapped up. Like." it's not gonna happen. But like, I appreciate you spending some time with me here. Here's like a cigar. Now go hit the streets, you know? It was kind of what
Right.
happened. And then this guy also told me that like people have been like shot over Department of Education transportation contracts
This is like
before.
there's a show right now, Penguin, and it's only okay. I think they could use some of these ideas. These are very visual.
Yeah, and I was like, this is for the DOE to move lunch tables, and people are getting threatened. Meetings are taking place in the back of limousines, and it's like this is what's happening with the schools. Like it's the contractors they use. It's just all folks who just have ins with like procurement at the top of the Department of Education. They charge a shit ton of money, and they like don't do much in return. It's like it's just people. It's just self-dealing. It's just like the
What
same
did we
folks giving
claim
money
our
to each other.
conspiracy theory of the week was this week? Because I think it's about lunch table procurement and trafficking. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what we said ours was, but now we've really gone deep. The level of corruption involved in lunch table transportation is shocking.
Because we've been, I have two new title this podcasts of the week because of our this whole conversation. Incompetence anywhere or lunch table trafficking. Do either of those knock off perpetual insecurity?
They both do. It's the last one,
I
though.
quite like lunch table trafficking.
I think that's it. I think we all know
Table
that that's the
trafficking.
one.
Lunch table trafficking. Rusty Shovel Wrecking Crew.